Hi, this is Brass Check, and I'm recording this on December 30th, 2021. Not sure when we'll put this out, and the subject is things taken for granted. And the phenomenon of taking things for granted is quite natural and quite necessary. I mean, you wouldn't be able to walk one block if you didn't have the ability to take things for granted because you'd be so amazed by things like trees and birds and other people that you'd never be able to make a step. You'd be so fascinated. So this taking things for granted is quite understandable and natural. That said, there are some things that do merit a really close look, and we're going to talk about one of those things today, and that is the work of Douglas Valentine, who I'm going to refer to as Doug. And if you don't know Doug, he's a poet. And he's also an investigative historian of the very highest order. And what put him in mind is I've been rereading his book, The Strength of the Wolf, subtitle, The Secret History of America's War on Drugs. And spoiler alert, it was really a war on us and the rest of the world. But that's sort of a generality. But what's so amazing about Doug's work, this book and all the books, and we're going to talk about them one by one, is the detail and the specificity and the thoroughness. There's not much like this in any genre, especially this genre of the world as it really is. Plenty of books on history, not many books on what actually propels history forward. And in the case of governments in general, but the United States government in particular, a lot of unhinged criminality, just mind-boggling stuff. And we as citizens, dependent on the news media, because where else are we going to get our information from, are so bamboozled and so fooled and so tricked, and given such a comic book version of reality that we really don't even know what's going on. And that's what makes books like Doug's The Strength of the Wolf so amazing. This talks about the fact that the war on drugs was absolutely a fundraiser for government criminal activity. No question, no doubts. We've gotten fragments of that here and there, but this book is a bit like the Encyclopedia Britannica of all the details, starting way back. And a companion book to this, The Strength of the Wolf, is The Strength of the Pack, which focused largely on what happened when this thing called the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, took over. And like I said, it's the level of detail is kind of mind-boggling and all perfectly well cited. And you see the connections between organized crime and various branches of the United States government and some corporate people. And you just are amazed that all this has been going on. And we've never really had a hint of it. And if it weren't for Doug Valentine, nobody would have a hint of this. There have been some other authors that have gotten into some of the mechanics of the realities of the drug trade, but nobody like Doug. Other books by him include TDY, which I believe is a fictionalized account. Let me double check that. It's a novel, yeah. But it is a novel drawn from a lot of real world research and experience about special operations and how they really work, how they're organized. It's not like in the movies. Really, really good book, TDY. one of the books that got him going, got Doug going, was a book called The Hotel Tacloban. I think that's how you say it. I don't know. And it's the account of his father's experiences, which were pretty tough during World War II. And that book, interestingly enough, opened the door for him to write the book, The Phoenix Program. And he tells the story very well. But long story short, a lot of people in the CIA read and liked his book because it shows heroism, the heroism of the American serviceman. And somehow they misunderstood Doug. They thought he was just going to mindlessly accept everything that they did. Instead, he very mindfully, paid close attention to what they were telling him, and made a great effort to take advantage of the opening he had. And he wrote a book called The Phoenix Program, which is about the the multi-headed hydra that operated in Vietnam. Alfred McCoy, one of the historians who's covered the history of drugs, one of the few who've done it at Doug's level, author of The Politics of Heroin, CIA Complicity in the Global Drug Trade, calls the Phoenix Program, Doug's book, the definitive account. We all best become familiar with the mentality and the methodology of the Phoenix Program, because that attempt to control and destroy the resistance of the Vietnamese people bred a lot of methodologies and a lot of human beings, some of whom are operating today. A lot of them went into the war on drugs, and some of them made it to the war on terror. And we've got a second generation of these guys now operating the COVID con. Doug doesn't talk about this guy because this is me talking now. But for example, here in Ulster County, we have our county executive who's on TV every day talking about how bad the virus is and how we all gotta do what he says to protect ourselves. Well, he's done 2 tours of duty in Iraq as an intelligence officer and created 2 software companies that are designed to surveil populations. And now he's a county executive running the local COVID con. So these military intelligence people find their way into all kinds of corners of our life, and we are their enemy. Make no doubt about it. And you're not going to find a better historian of this than Douglas Valentine. His most recent book is The CIA as Organized Crime: How Illegal Operations Corrupt America and the World. And wow, talk about a ballsy title, and talk about a title that tells the whole story. It is factually correct to describe the CIA as organized crime. In fact, as Doug shows in his other books, they work hand in hand with organized crime, literally. And the CIA is absolutely involved in illegal operations, things that should land the people that do them in jail. They do not end up in jail, interestingly enough. And their activities corrupt America and the world. So there you go, right there in the title. But of course, you can get more into it. But it's hard to imagine anybody making sense of the 20th century and the 21st century that we're going through without having access to these books. They are masterpieces of detail and precision and comprehensiveness. And it's history you are otherwise never going to hear from any other source. And yet, if you're looking for wild-eyed stuff, if you're looking for crazy claims, If you're looking for people, taking a thread and stretching it beyond recognition, you're not going to find that with Doug's books. Instead, you're going to find very meticulously, beautifully crafted history. If in the future people actually have a clue as to what the period we're living through was like, it's going to be thanks to people like Doug, and I think he's one of the best examples of what somebody can do with history, relatively contemporary history, who's not afraid to look at the unblinking into reality, and then do the very, very hard work. I can't even imagine putting all this together that he's done. So the books, in no particular order, I would suggest just start with the one that strikes your fancy, and you're going to find that you're going to want to read them all, and you're going to be a proud owner of them, as I am. I have my Doug Valentine shelf here, and these books always stay with me. They do not get sold. They're not put in in my storage unit. I always like to have them handy. So the most recent book, The CIA as Organized Crime: How Illegal Operations Corrupt America and the World. The Phoenix program, which people who are knowledgeable say is the best book on the subject. The twin books, The Strength of the Wolf and The Strength of the Pack. Somebody should really make a movie about these books, but nobody would ever believe the truth, because the truth is wilder than the fiction. And two, you couldn't make one movie. It would have to be like one of those 99-part serials, Maybe Netflix could do it. Then TDY, a fictionalized account of what black operations are really like. The Hotel Tacloban, and I'm probably messing the name up, but I've only read it. I've never heard it said. Doug's tribute to his father's heroism during World War II. And poetry. Let's not forget poetry. And that's, one of the interesting things here. In addition to being a investigative historian of the highest order, you're not going to you'll find equals. You're not going to find better. Doug's also a fine poet, and I strongly recommend his book, A Crow's Dream. So we're going to put links to all of these books below, and maybe I'll put some interviews too that we did with Doug, where he gives his survey of the way the so-called war on drugs has been one of the pillars of repression, financing it, enhancing its operations, giving a pretense for brutalizing American society and other societies around the world. So the author is Douglas Valentine, and this has been Brass Check, and absolutely make sure you check out his work if you haven't. If you're a reader, these books will blow your mind. They're as good as they get.